Welcome back to the Interiospective audio tour. We're moving on to room 2, starting in the main hallway where we're looking at two interiospective paintings that are right next to each other, similar but very different. The first one was done in the traditional flat wood style, while this one is done in a three-dimensional wood style, sort of like an assemblage, but it's still considered a painting in my eyes simply because I think that the work of art would not work if it weren't for what's painted on it. And I think this painting was a big milestone in how I approach assemblage art today, since I'm much more involved with it. And I would like to use more of this style for the assemblage artworks, as well as just broadening the interiospective style a little bit further. Now, room 2 has been sped up a little bit and has a lot more of a fast-paced camera simply because there's a lot more artworks we have to go through. And what we're about to view after this little painting has been looked at is a wooden torso wearing two forms of book art that were exhibited in another art show called Bookish, which was all book art. You see the Beverage Book there in the front breast pocket, and I actually invited people to actually reach in and take out the book and view it and then put it back in. And a few people were actually courageous enough to try it, while others were still a little afraid to actually touch artwork. And I would like to actually go further into exploring that idea of interactive art versus art that you're supposed to admire from afar. Now, in the Interiospective series itself, just a little furthermore on my ideas of the full series, is that the Interiospectives are not simply based on viewing a room and painting it. You can see that the rooms are based off life, and other times they're based on memory, and sometimes they're based on imagination. And it's all not just to show a room just as it is, but just to show ways to convey a room, a way you can organize the forms of it, how you can turn it into sort of like a language. Just to break away from that, I'm also going to show you and tell you why this painting is here. Along with another portrait, this painting is here just to show the variety of my painting style, just to show that Interiospectives was not the only thing that I do. Though the Interiospective style is very dominant in this exhibition. You start to see paintings that are related to one another, where you see paintings mirror one another from across the room or between rooms. Like Monoceros here, just on the opposite side, has a twin painting called Phoenix, which is a little different but has a very similar style. And opposed to that, you see Perseus here, which is very similar to Pegasus in room 1. And it shows that you don't have to have the paintings perfectly paired with one another just to have them show that they're related, because it's very clear how Perseus and Pegasus are related, and just how you can kind of organize an exhibition with multiple rooms by just sort of like having this one in one corner of one room, and in the opposite room in the opposite corner you have the other one. And I think that idea came out real well to the person who set up this exhibition. But sometimes, like this one, Eridanus, which is right next to Pavo, these two are very similar to one another and are hanging right next to each other. Eridanus is a painting that is based on actual perspective, actually sitting in the space and painting it. Same thing with Pavo, which takes that another step to showing that I was actually there, where you actually see me painting the painting in the painting. And I think that I would like to say that it doesn't always have to be that way, but you can just kind of have different ways to explore an idea of perspective. And when you look at paintings like Phoenix here, which is a room that's made completely out of my imagination, you can see that you can still convey your series in a multiple magnitude of thoughtful ways. you can see just how an imagination of objects and furniture and space, you can make something like motifs and language out of it. You can kind of convey a story without really telling one. And you can have ways of morphing a perspective, like this one, which is semi-realistic based on an actual space, and then semi-abstracted, which is what most of the interiospectives are meant to do. Another good thing about knowing setup and what was a really good idea with this exhibition, you can see from Chameleon the painting and the USS Violin assemblage below it that based on color you can pair things together. The USS Violin has all these orange and green objects around it, and it suits being really close to Chameleon, having those similar colors. And moving on to a sub-series called the Argo Navis series, you can see how the colors can also transition one another from one series to another, one sub-series to another, I mean. And here is another room series that is completely from imagination, but also based on something from memory. And this is a large room made of 3 rooms. And in this sub-series, you see 3 smaller paintings of these rooms splitting apart from one another and standing alone in their own color fields. These paintings are based more upon the idea of pixel art, where the brushstrokes are painted on a grid, and it's supposed to just show how the brushstrokes are meant to kind of catch the grooves of wood and start to look like they're deteriorating or that they're fading and breaking apart. And you can see that very clearly here. And I wanted to just sort of show how a perspective of a room can also change based on the bird's eye view, where you see the wall on the bottom works sort of like a shelf for that plant. And there are aspects of each room that are slowly disappearing in each perspective. So overall, I'd have to say that just before I end this tour, the next painting you're about to see is a semi-realistic style, also just to show that I have more approaches than just the interiospective style. But I will be growing upon this series. And with that, we end our tour going into the Nova Vargas in armored chair. And thus you see that, you know, I have more than just one style to explore. So with that, I thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed Room 2.